Well, you know what Regis does in the opening segment? That's what we're doing. This is essentially a show about nothing.
This might be what you call overpackaged. This is supposed to be a radio chassis for repair. Let's get it open and have a look. We got a return label. That's a good thing. And we got lots and lots of paper. Well, this is definitely acceptable. This is definitely double boxed. That, you know, you have that layer of paper insulation so that it just would be nice if it was tighter. That way there's less lash. Oh, bubble point cigarette rash here. So there's for reference. There's the contents of the box compared to the size of the box. Overpacking? I don't know. It depends on how much you value your vintage gear. This set is going to be a daily user when it's done, so it's going to need a complete recap. All the electrolytics, all the wax paper, any bad resistors. I know on Resurrections we really don't change that stuff, but if you have a TV or a radio you're going to use in your house daily and you want it to be safe and reliable, this era really needs all the capacitors changed. I know they'll work resurrected, but that's only temporary resurrection. That's not restoration, electrical restoration. So anything like this needs to be recapped. I believe the complaint with this was it just hums. And I'm trying to understand this right here. A lot of these radios, the AM antenna is very critical. I'm not saying that's what's wrong with it, but wire nuts are an interesting touch. It's a Philco model 481256. It's a 1948 model, and this is the chassis for a record, one of the small record player AM radio combination deals, tabletop. Remember, always start with a thorough visual inspection. And people get on me for J-hooking stuff. You know, I always cut and J-hook rather than try and solder to the actual tube socket or whatever the wire was originally soldered to, because I don't want to heat it up and risk damaging something. Like this. What is... So what did we do our soldering with? A cigarette lighter and a nail, 16-penny nail. I'm going to assume this is a speaker because this goes to the audio output transformer. I'm going to guess this is power for the record player motor, and I'm going to guess that these three are for the antenna coil, or possibly these two, and this is a ground. I need the antenna. And whenever you're working on something like this, the extending the wires and clip leads and stuff like this drastically affects the tuning of the antenna. You really need to have it connected as it would be in the set in use to align it properly. So let me do some research here. So the first thing I'm going to do, here are the steps I'm going to take on this. The first thing I'm going to do is attempt to get either the antenna coil or some pictures of the antenna coil from the gentleman who owns this radio. The second thing I'm going to do is try and get a SAMS on it. I have it, I just have to dig it out of the garage or whatever. And then from there, being this is a Philco, the first thing I'm going to do after that is check all these coils, because I believe these will go open on Philco. I wonder if this doesn't use an antenna coil. Maybe it uses just an antenna wire, but the schematic will show us that. I don't think so with the way the tuning capacitor is set up though, but hey, what do I know? And then after the coils check out, we'll move on to addressing this stuff here. You know, sometimes you go to just do a good visual inspection and you start looking at this stuff. And then you can't stop looking at it because you're just in total amazement trying to figure out what happened. What happened to this thing? What went here? What did this originally look like? And sometimes things just don't make sense or add up. Like Radio TV Phono Nut, he'll get a virgin, totally virgin, mint condition, early Bakelite radio. And when he receives it, it's crushed because they basically packed it in nothing. They just packed it in, they threw it in a box and shipped it, and he gets this crushed pile of scraps. And then you get something like this that's packed like that. So sometimes things just don't make sense, but that's okay. We can work through all of that and we'll have a happy outcome, and everybody will be smiling, and the flowers will be bright, and the birds will be chirping, and it'll just be eternal bliss and euphoria in utopia. Wait, did I just cut a Joe Biden campaign ad right there? Getting back into our Philco 481256. On the Nostalgia Air website, we got a really good service manual here. And this has maybe one of the best service manuals I've ever seen, as far as showing the layout and where the components are connected. And so we should be able to straighten this out real nice. Now this uses a voltage doubler in the off the rectifier, which is kind of interesting. Let me find it here. It's all broken up into little sections, but yeah, so basically here's our 50x6 voltage doubler, so it uses two 15 microfarad capacitors in this configuration, and it gives us 215 volts off the 110 volt line. So the first thing I'm going to do, not worry about that, I'm going to go through with an ohm meter and check all these coils. I want to make sure all these coils are good. So I'll start with that first, because I know Philco has a problem with coils, and a bad coil will make this thing silent. This one is the oscillator coil, it checks good. This one is the RF coil, it checks good, but what's interesting about it, that's a 6800 ohm resistor. Well, there's supposed to be a 15K on the other side, and it's been removed. And the manual here shows the two resistors. See them there? So one of them is where all these botched solders are, appears to be gone, unless I'm just not seeing it. The 15K is missing. Wait, maybe it's not. It's down here under the wax right there. Okay, I stand corrected. Okay, both coils ohm out good. Checking our first IF transformer. This is beautiful because it gives you the colors of the wires that are coming out of the IF transformer, so it looks like we're good. Okay, all the coils are good. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to try and clean this up a little bit. Got that big blob down there. I'm going to try and clean this up and just verify some of these connections and hopefully maybe do something with this. I'm just trying to remove all this. I'm going to clean this off totally. You usually don't see me do this. I usually J-hook everything, but this is a little bit too far gone. So these don't have eyelet holes drilled in them. They're just wrapped around. What I might want to do is just leave the leads along until I get the radio working. That way I can have access. And to the dude, let's get some of that chainsaw action in there. The service this, man, you need to work on your soldering a little bit. I don't know what kind of iron you're using, what kind of solder, but this right here, what is this, 60? This is like 60 watts right here. You need some real heat when you do this stuff, and you need to get on it and get off of it quick. Or else you end up with all these really raspy cold solder joints that don't stick. Don't be afraid to put the fire to it, but you need to have heat, get on it, and get off of it quick. Or else you end up with stuff that looks like that right there. As I go through this, I'm checking to make sure every capacitor is the right value. It's not off by a factor of 10. And everything looks good. It's just stuff like this. You know, it's just the sloppy work. You know, I'm looking down in this area here. We went over this, and there's 3 capacitors missing here. 201, 204, and 205. Are completely missing out of this area. Oh boy, what a mess. This right here is supposed to be this capacitor inductor combination. Also, this uses a floating ground. The chassis is floating 120 ohms up, 120k ohms above ground. And according to what I'm looking at, 4 and 5 should be tied together, because this is actual power ground. The other side here is chassis ground. So 4 and 5 should be tied together. See, our B plus here is coming through this wire and is not being tied to all the other grounds that run to everything else. According to this, 4 and 5 are tied together. According to this, 4 is G3 and 5 is S1. I have no idea what that is. Shield? We're starting to come together here a little bit more. No. I got that cleaned up. I got pin 4 and 5 connected together so that the ground continues onto the rest of the set. As the way it was, the front end was receiving ground. Ground meaning B plus ground. We'll call the B plus ground ground, and we'll call the chassis the shield, because the chassis is isolated, like I said, by 120k ohm resistor in this capacitor. So before pin 4 and 5 not being connected, the ground stopped here. It wasn't continuing on. So hopefully I got this right. This can be a little confusing sometimes. I've been checking everything as I go along. I'm trying to clean it up a little bit. My solders don't look beautiful, but they're definitely sticking. I've got a nice amount of solder there. Good rosin core. So I think we're about ready to power it up. I think I can power it up without all these capacitors. These are all just tone circuit. Now this ground is coming all the way over here to the audio output tube, just like it's supposed to. This right here, C202, this is the grid coupling capacitor to the audio output. This is the one you want to change first. Forget all the other ones. This is the one that'll destroy the audio output tube. We need to change that. And before I power it up, I'm going to straighten this crap out with the power cord. I don't know what this is all about. Still, I mean, it's better. The solder is sticking now, but it's still kind of amateur hour here. I've cleaned it up as best I could for now. I want to see it work. Then once it works, we can straighten out the capacitors, straighten out the 4 electrolytics, get the audio section recapped. It should work without the antenna because it has an RF amp. We'll at least get K and X, I would think. And this, which is the phono wire to the phonograph, this is coax. And unless, maybe this is it right here, it's pulled out, the yellow wire, but it uses a floating ground too through a capacitor. So without this capacitor in place, and I believe this capacitor goes over here to ground, the same ground we just connected through pin 4 and 5. Without this ground in place, the phonograph wouldn't work. This grounding capacitor. I'm using a 25 watt light bulb for current limiting. I got a speaker here. It's going to be hard to hear anything with the chainsaw. Here we go. You turn this one way is phono, and you turn it the other way is radio. Here we go, power. I'm looking at the B plus here. Wonder how many milliamps these vacuum tubes are. Let me look at that. Okay, here we go. It's very, very slowly starting to warm up. That's okay. That's what I want. I want that light bulb there in case something is not right here or something shorts. It won't blow the tubes up. It's coming up slowly. I'm gonna unscrew this. God, this is what, 7 of our 25 watts? Boy, and that made a big difference. Okay, that seems like our phono. Let's go to radio. That should be radio. Our B plus is still very low. Will it do anything on 50 volts? I don't think so. So it doesn't look like anything is shorted. I'm going to go up to a 40 watt bulb.
미국, 캐나다, 유럽, 아시아, 중남미 그리고 고국 방문까지 맞춤 관광도 1등, 저렴한 티켓도 1등. 하누리 여행사.
Remember, we don't have the antenna. We don't have the right antenna. Okay, well, when the radio starts going ding ding dong 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 ding, it's definitely a good sign.
That would be really cheap to get.
How about the Washington Squatters? Because copyright squatters are hoping for a big payday when the team finally settles new name and logo. Copyright squatters are people who start copywriting potential nicknames in the hope a team will pay them for the copyright. 61-year-old Martin McCauley has filed for 40 trademarks over the years, according to the Washington Times.
It's a good sign.
The Washington Americans, Washington Monuments, and the Washington Red-Tailed Hawks. Oh, he also filed for the Washington Warriors, but didn't get anywhere because the Warriors team owner Dan Snyder...
Yeah, but nobody wants the word Washington anymore because that's like old school and we can't have that.
Warriors name, and if that happens, since Snyder wants the name, he'll have to pay up. Randy Cardoon, KNX 1070, News Radio. Some lanes of Colorado Boulevard.
Donate your car today.
1877 cars.
This should be 200. I'm going to go up to 68 watt. Yeah, if we get rid of the light bulb,
Boats, motorcycles, RVs, and real estate donations.
if we get rid of the light bulb, we'd be right up there where we should be. So, okay, it's working. It's working okay without the proper antenna. So I'm going to go through and I'm going to clean up this right here. And
put the track at Los Alamitos on notice that a shutdown could be coming. California's horse racing
okay, I cleaned this up.
on probation for 10 days. This follows the death of 29 horses so far this year, 19 dying in racing or training related incidents, and 10 to illness.
We still got 3 capacitors missing here. We need to change this. We got 4 capacitors to change. We need to get the antenna, which is supposed to be on the way, and an alignment. So capacitors, antenna, alignment. But yeah, this is.
Time to come up with what they call an action plan to explain.
Need to put some silicone on here.
The horse racing board still has the power to suspend racing altogether for the rest of the year.
Okay, we now got the original antenna out of the radio, so we can continue on with the completing the recap and then verifying that the performance and sensitivity is what it should be, and we can align it pretty close without the case. So yeah, let's do the finish the recap and get this hooked up. This is our phono ground isolation capacitor. This is the grid audio output grid coupling capacitor. This disc down here is the tone capacitor when you turn the tone control on. This right here, I think they call that just a tone capacitor. Basically, when you turn the tone control on, it parallels this 0.03 with this 0.01 to cut the high end down. And I don't mind disc capacitors in the audio circuit of an AM radio. Zenith used them primarily in all their AM FM radios, so Zenith did it, it's got to be good, right? I cleaned up all of this as much as I could, film capacitors, and most of it that he put in, and then the electrolytics, I kind of siliconed them all together here so they'd be stable and safe. Really know where to attach anything. But I think we're good here. We can hook the antenna up and see how the sensitivity is now. This is still a bit sloppy for a total recap, but unless I completely tear it all the way down and start over, which I'm not going to do, it's pretty solid. I got tubing everywhere where anything could possibly touch, and everything's soldered very well and insulated. Now it still looks kind of crappy, but if it's reliable and electrically stable, that's what matters. The one thing I am interested in is the across the line capacitor. Is that in here? Let me check that, because it'll hum and buzz like crazy if it's not. And also, all the resistors check real close. Impressive for a Philco, I will say. C100 right here is the AC across the line capacitor, which is this one right here. Not really what I would consider a AC safety rated capacitor, but I didn't put it in there, so I'm not going to screw with it. It should be fine.
It had been so. What happens? So Bob is having his morning coffee thinking, wait, there's something on the morning of, like that, on the morning of day 2. And that's when Christian called him to tell him he'd lucked out. And the first one he wanted was advertised on the website. Time to find him and call him the next day. Nice.
So there's KNX,
How you get it, Bob?
and right above it should be Radio Disney Country.
North Park Subaru Dominion in San Antonio. A gentleman named Sam said the
Not working right.
Llamó el IRS a su empleador. No se descarrile. Permítanos ayudarle.
What do you got going on here? Let me see something here. I need to get rid of these clip leads out of here and not have it laying. I need to have it as close to what it would be as possible. Yeah, where's the sensitivity? I got it hung up on this bottle now. Need to align this with a signal generator. I'm just playing around. Ooh, that one has no effect. That could be a problem. Yeah, why is this one having no effect? Got a problem here. Crap. Okay, I'm comparing its performance to this Philco transistor radio, and this is nothing phenomenal, okay? And this is got stations running over the top of each other. It won't pick up anything but the very strongest stations. Here's LA Oldies. This thing here won't pick that up in a dream. So, and it's squealing.
No sé si sí can wait. What happens then?
Hear how there's 3 radio stations laying on top of each other there?
Because if we do have another shutdown, which we don't think tiene que tener un efecto en los deportes.
So I'm thinking that this right here could be the problem with that. Something's wrong why this isn't tuning, and it's weird how that looks kind of burnt. So I wonder what it takes to take this apart. Okay, well that wasn't hard and that wasn't easy. How the hell could this... How could this type of capacitor fail? There's nothing to this. It's a sandwiching some mica wafers in the middle. How could this fail? Okay, the coil ohms out good. How could that cut I reviewed the schematic and followed these wires and made sure all the capacitors were in place and everything was connected right under the chassis. Then I disconnected the coil and one of the leads, and I'm checking the variable capacitor on this, and this is kind of hard to see, but I'm getting an eye opening right now around around 110 picofarads. That's all the way tightened down. The value of this thing seems to be about 50 to 110 picofarads, and that seems about right to me. I changed the 14A7 tube, which is what this capacitor connects to, and the same thing, still no peak, nothing. I'm going to try and bridge another variable cap across this. I'm going to try and parallel this with that. Okay, well that affects it, but I still can't get a peak. I don't know, maybe I'm looking in the wrong place.
Tenido al turco Mohamed, un entrenador que ya había sido campeón de la Liga MX, a Miguel Herrera, que no había sido campeón, pero que llegó y levantó un título con las Águilas del América, y Nacho como que no tenía ese perfil que encajaba en la afición azul crema. Sí, igual, más allá de que, como bien lo mencionó, es fácil obtener una increíble oferta en un nuevo cuerpo, ¿no? El haber dirigido un equipo importante y grande como lo es Chivas, ¿no? Pero creo que eran pocos los años que traía como técnico y a lo mejor eso le terminó pesando. Pues, me imagino si le preguntaran a la afición.
Why am I not getting a peak on this? I got it all back together. I'm going to have to just spend a few minutes, because it comes out of this tube into here and then from this into here, IF amp. I'm going to just have to spend a minute reviewing the connections.
BobSmithBMW.com or call us at 800
Okay, so what was going on here? This sloppy thing that I didn't go over was bent over, and it was touching pin 4 to 5. Okay, so pin 4 to 5 was shorted together. So the cathode to one of the diodes, I don't see how that would... That's one whole stage behind this. This feeds into this, this feeds into this, this feeds into this. why this being shorted affects this, unless it's affecting the plate load on this tube. I don't know. I don't know. Whatever, we got a peak now. We're going to align this with 14.5 or 455 in a minute. Okay, you can hear riders on the storm here. That's LA Oldies. It's picking it up, but not real well. Oh, there we go. Boy, KNX is just smearing across the whole band. God, the performance of this sucks. I'm in an isolation transformer. 455 AM modulation. All I have this because this signal generator will put out so much power. All I do is I have this kind of loosely just coupled under the RF coil. Oh, cut it out. I don't even think you need this grounded, but okay, anyway, here we go. Boy, look at how sharp that peak is on that one now. Okay, that's pretty good. Doobie Brothers with KNX running behind it.
Downtown, got that backwards out of lane, southbound 110 at 6th Street, City of Commerce, 5 northbound Washington, a broken car in the leftmost lane. East LA interchange, 5 northbound 1-1, car crash.
Why? Why?
Shoulder to the mountains, crest line on the 18th.
Is the IF that wide or something?
Airbags deployed, but 2 people jumped out of the car and they seem to be okay. Westbound
Wonder if I got this antenna hooked up wrong. Let me check that. I think it's working about how it should. You know, it needs to be put in the cabinet and have the antenna placed in the cabinet, you know, and everything near where it should be and then fully aligned. Well, these two up here aligned. But, you know, you really can't just do it with the not in the cabinet. Hang it up there, but you're Your final alignment should always be with everything in place.
And during the Ram drive forward program, they're all...
Let's kind of do everybody's favorite, the channel sweep here, and just listen real careful.
Hold on, Muncie. We have another call coming in.
Yo, Vic, Max, I'm loving my new Ram from Premier Ram of Buena Park. They're operating responsibly and even deliver my new Ram right to my door. Log on to Premier CDJR Buena.
영업시켜오는데 오늘 20부분을 고칠 거잖아요. 그러니까 2야세 애들인데 첫 번째 우리 댕기머리 기골드는 네.
Exposure to others who may have COVID-19 is possible.
And you've already been trying to get guidelines.
Where the great promise of these voice assistants has just really disappointingly let us down. And if you ask me now, is voice one of the hot technologies of the 2020s? I'd have to say, yeah, it could have been.
거짓말이라고 하잖아요.
Weeks. Babbel uses a modern conversation-based technique that makes language engaging, fun, and memorable. It starts by teaching you words and phrases.
Okay. For some, this can include thoughts of suicide. Though the warning signs can be subtle. Experiences everywhere are saying uncle.
The AVC is working too. I had the voltmeter on it. It does go negative when you get a hot signal.
Hearts and minds. I really feel... Be open to life.
¿Qué significa? De que pues quitamos el...
Business as usual for a lot of Southern California. But at KNX, every day is business as usual. Whether the day brings an earthquake, wildfires, even a pandemic. So you'll always get breaking news and the latest updates every time you listen. KNX 1070 News Radio. Depend on us.
Dwight here from Mesa.
Okay. Now, Radio Disney Country should be right above this. That seems good. That seems good.
6111 y estamos en redes sociales nada más con tanta información.
That's so crazy.
So one part of the stem cell fights the inflammation. It also has an immunomodulatory effect. So
Ooh. I think this radio has an immunomodulatory effect.
Give us a call today and let us show you why. For the past 30 years, Mesa continues to be Southern California's.
Okay, now up here, KNX starts to run over everything.
Call 888-599.
Go to PacificCoastTermite.com for a 10% discount off termite treatments. Restrictions apply.
It is 12:23 on this Saturday afternoon. California students
Why the hell do we have another image of KNX right here?
are not equipped yet, according to a new California Department of Education.
You know, there's a coil missing out of this thing. There was a coil wrapped around one of these capacitors that he deleted. It's that right there. And that coil, I believe they said in here the coil was to reject shortwave interference. But I don't know, maybe we should try putting a coil in there.
Use the applications that they need.
So there's LA Oldies 1260 with an immunomodulatory issue.
Living in the U.S.
The U.S. has ranked among
Sí, Andrés Lelini.
En realidad es así, ¿no? O sea, el saber de que lo que tú estabas diciendo ahorita, pueden perder.
¿Cómo te llamas?
Pediste que fueran y predicar.
Mexico.
Pero de ahí.
많이 받아봤다고 한 사람이니?
일불 89전에 드리니까요.
All this whistling and it should not be here. I'm going to try putting I don't know what value though. See, he took it out. The guy who recapped it, who worked on it, took that capacitor with a coil around it out. Oh. It's getting this, which means that I need to adjust the oscillator because it's shifted. It should not be getting this. This is in the new part of the band that this radio will not get. This is that capacitor that's supposed to have the coil around it. Pretty important capacitor. I put this just random choke in here and listen to what it's doing. So I have a feeling that coil that was wrapped around that capacitor is really important. See, they were really specific about this, even to the point of where the coil was wrapped around the outside foil side of the capacitor. You got to look at this stuff when you work on these old radios. Some little stupid thing like that might seem trivial can be real important. And it doesn't seem to make much of a difference, but I don't know if I'm getting the value right, and the lead dress and positioning of all this stuff is important, and it was all ripped out before I got the thing, so I might just bypass it and leave it. The only real issue seems to be is KNX, and KNX is only right here because the antenna is like less than a couple miles from me, if that. So, you know. So on these, how you go from radio to phono is you go to off and then backwards. So this is our phono input right here. Sounds good and hot. The ground is there. You can feed your MP3 player in there and never use the radio. So I don't know, it seems to be working okay. It's decent. It's not perfect, but it's decent. And I think with what I started off with to where I am, it's decent. So I'm going to ship it. We'll do some disco Saturday night, let it run all day, but I'm going to ship it. Something in the let's go. Okay, the issue with this thing is this. This is where the flaky's coming from. So
Every 10 minutes on the 5's coming up in just 5 minutes after CBS covers the world at 2 o'clock.
This is CBS News on the Hour, sponsored by NHTSA.
I'm Allison Keyes in Washington. A familiar voice for TV viewers is silenced now. Regis Philbin is dead at the age of 88. CBS's Matt Piper reports.
Audiences loved Regis Philbin, and during his years as a talk show host, he had the ratings to prove it.
What does that say? 6.6 with a 21 share.
Unheard of. Unheard of in our business. In the morning.
President Trump knew Philbin before he entered politics.
Regis doesn't really understand how important he is, and there's something very beautiful about that.
Philbin liked to brag that comic Jerry Seinfeld was also a fan.
Seinfeld said, well, you know what Regis does in the opening segment? That's what we're doing. This is essentially a show about nothing.
And for Seinfeld to have imitated Regis Philbin, that was surely something. Matt Piper, CBS News.
Turning now to services for civil rights.
A group of seniors and grandparents who are fed up with people who fail to cover their face while they are out in public. Eileen Waterstone, a 69-year-old grandmother from Brentwood, she's led a 10-car procession with signs in their car windows that said, "Grannies for masks and grannies want to live." And she tells KNX people should wear a mask from the very second they step foot outside their home.
I think that science has proved that if both people are wearing a mask, that the rate of infection can be lowered. And, I wear a mask now. I have a short walk from where I park my car to my back gate. And I always wear a mask because I encounter people all the time coming down the sidewalk, just taking a walk, walking their dogs, no mask.
Waterstone also wants people to think about how failing to wear a mask affects more vulnerable populations like her and her gang of grannies. A driver in critical condition after he got hit